All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Jillian. I will be your Zoom host. Our presenters will be getting started shortly. This is a reminder to please keep yourself muted throughout the presentation unless the presenter indicates otherwise. If you have a question, please use the raise hand feature, which is located in the reactions icon, or type your question in the chat box. We will do all lightning rounds first and take questions after. Please be aware that this presentation is being recorded and will be available for viewing after the conference. Live transcriptioning has been enabled. You can turn it on or off using the live transcription or show captions feature on the right-hand corner of your screen. We recommend the speaker view as they go. And at the close of the presentation, I will be putting an assessment survey in the chat box. Please fill out the assessments for every session that you attend. Without further ado, I will hand it over to our first speaker, Bruce Wardlow.
Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure that y'all can see my screen. And go ahead and click present. So everyone can see my slides, right? Yes, okay, that's always exciting. First hurdle down. Now, my name is Bruce Wardlow. I'm the Open Educational Resources Librarian at Cornette Library at West Texas A&M University, and thank you for coming to my lightning talk. There's one A&M library collaborating with rural schools to increase student opportunities. Now, fair warning, I am going to speak very quickly because these are lightning rounds and I have a lot that I would like to stuff into a very short amount of time. Now, I am here to tell you all about a new community outreach program that we piloted earlier this year at Cornette Library here. It is the Library Partnership Program, Your Bridge to College Knowledge. Now, the idea behind this particular program is to reach out to rural, primarily 1A schools, and give them a little bit of help, because a lot of the 1A schools around where we are don't necessarily have a dedicated full-time librarian, so there's definitely a gap in their information literacy. Additionally, a lot of these schools have only a few thousand books within their collection, as opposed to our 314,759 print books. Now, the basic idea of this is we partner with these rural schools. Their teachers can check out our books to use within their classroom to beef up their own library access. And then students also come to the university for information literacy instruction and to see themselves at the university, because there may be a slight itty bitty little recruiting section of this particular program. Now, our program goals, we are a student-centered organization, so our primary goals is to increase student success by giving students information literacy skills, as well as give students the opportunity to see themselves at college. A lot of these are very rural, small-town students, and they don't necessarily have that image of themselves going to college in the big city. And for some of these students, Canyon is the big city. So, additionally, in addition to student success, one of the goals is to increase our circulation of print materials, because our circulation of print materials is down, and this is an opportunity where we can get a lot more use out of that. Additionally, at all levels, our university is very focused on building community relationships and meeting community needs. This program allows us to build community relationships of our own, as well as reinforce other institutional organizations in building their relationships with our local schools. Now, we're not doing this program alone. We do have some institutional partners. The first one is our Department of Admissions. They are graciously providing lunch at our dining facility for the students, as well as providing campus tours, because they say, oh, look, student groups. We want some of that. We would like to do some recruiting, which is fine. We're happy to let them pay for things. Additionally, we have the Rural Resilience and Opportunity on the High Plains AmeriCorps program. Now, this particular program is a coalition of local community organizations, as well as the university, and their goal is to help smooth the transition between high school and university. So they do a lot of tutoring at both the collegiate and high school level, as well as really try to help students get financial aid and get their applications to universities. If you go into any of the local high schools around here, especially in the spring, they are chasing down everyone, making sure their FAFSAs get filled out. Now, the AmeriCorps program for us, they provided some success coaches to accompany the group throughout the entire experience. So the students They come, they meet some people that graduated from WTAMU, and they actually build those one-on-one connections. Additionally, they have provided some programming for our class of seniors. Now, this is the pilot. We piloted with Claude High School, which is a local 1A high school. It's about an hour's drive away from Canyon, and they do actually have a full-time librarian, which is actually one of the reasons this entire program got started. But first, we had a group of about 25 juniors. They were studying the Great Gatsby, and so they had a research project over various topics within the 1920s. For them, they wanted to spend their time here at the university doing some actual research. So I went ahead and I pre-selected a collection of about 30 books for them to use in their classroom that cover the topics that were given to me about the 1920s. They received research methodology instruction. And in the afternoon, because our university has a very substantial collection of bound periodicals, a lot of which are from the 1920s, including some titles that are still around. For example, Nature, National Geographic, Good Housekeeping. What we did is we sat down the juniors in a room, we filled it with magazines from the 20s, and we let the students explore those magazines, read them, discuss things. So there was a lot of very interesting and unique learning opportunities that came up by simply sitting the students down in with a bunch of magazines. Plus, they got very excited about the Great Gatsby because they got really into the ads and Good Housekeeping. Now, in February, we had a group of about 23 seniors. They were studying Animal Farm, and they had a research project on totalitarian dictators. Now, this group opted to choose their own books, which really, really helped with them being invested in their research, because they went out and they decided, this is the one book I want to read out of the 314,759 books that were available. And it really helped their research according to their teacher. They also received research methodology instruction. And this group, rather than the primary source exploration, they received a college success presentation that was focused on how to transition to university life. Now, one of the interesting things that the R2OHP group did is they went out and found some seniors that actually graduated from Claude High School. That way, these seniors can actually speak to actual college students from where they are and get that peer experience to learn and really get a lot of the questions answered that they had. So, in general, they considered it a very big success. Here's a general overview of the program. They arrived around 9, had about an hour of information literacy study. They had about an hour of independent research time. Then they had lunch and a campus tour. And then in the afternoon, we had those afternoon sessions, and they left about 2. So realistically, we had them for about 3 out of the 5 hours they were on campus. Now, lessons learned. These are directly from the students. The first thing, get feedback from students about what they want to see on their tour. Now, this group did get a fairly standard university tour, and because they are a 1A school and they are in the, they're a very rural school in the Panhandle, they are very, very excited about the FFA. And WT has very, very impressive, very expansive, very fancy ag buildings and agricultural facilities that they didn't get to see, which disappointed a lot of the students. So definitely it's one of those, if you do something similar to this, make sure you reach out to the students and say, okay, what do you actually want to see here at the university? Additionally, for a lot of these students, this was their very first college visit, and for a lot of them, it was their only college visit that they were anticipating going on. And because of that, even though we gave them lots of swag, every institutional organization involved in this gave them lots of swag. We were very happy we gave them bags initially because they got a lot of stuff. The students really wanted time to shop at the bookstore and get the things that they really wanted to. And so that was one of the big pieces of feedback we got, is like, we want to go shopping. And it's like, okay, we can get y'all shopping, just let me schedule that in. Now, for our next steps with this particular program, marketing, we're going to hit marketing pretty hard this fall. We're going to create some marketing materials, and we are going to directly target 1A schools with no dedicated librarian. We anticipate that it will be a much easier to sell to the administration of those organizations to pay for the cost of a bus and getting their students out here. If we can say, look, you don't have a dedicated librarian, you've got a regional librarian, comes once a month, here's just some extra stuff, We are going to be presenting, or I'm going to be doing a joint presentation with the librarian from Claude High School over this particular program at our local TLA fall meeting. And finally, we're going to leverage some pre-existing R2OHP relationships. They are in a lot of schools, and they're happy to do some marketing for us, and just it's very reciprocal. They weren't in Claude before this. Now they are very, very in Claude. As well as we're going to make some program refinements. One of the things that we want to do is build a library of videos for specific colleges or majors to help answer those questions for those students that have specific interests. Additionally, we're going to have to make that pre-trip survey form to determine students' interests and if they applied to WT, and see if they really want to look at, you know, the dorms, or if they really want to go look at the ag buildings and play in the dirt, which is what I would want to do at a college trip too, because I'm also one of those FFA people. But additionally, we did use a general community computer use form, and we found that the coverage on that one and the verbiage in it didn't really exactly fit our program. And so we are going to go ahead and create a program-specific computer use form and actually finalize a lot of those policies. Now, I do have a public-facing LibGuide for this. It is infoguides.wtamu.edu/collaborate/LPP. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat. And this is an overview of sort of what the program is, as well as links and information to all of our partners and the sort of options that we are creating and trying to support for students to really try to help sell this program to a lot of those local schools. So again, my name is Bruce Wardlow. If you are interested in potentially creating a similar sort of program with a lot of your local schools, because I can tell you there's a lot of really small schools in Texas, and they all need as much help as they can get, and they're generally happy to answer it. Let me know. I can help you build this up. You know, and if you do find it, let me know. I'd be happy to. I'm always happy to take refinements from anywhere they're coming from. So that concludes my marathon of talking at you. Thank you all for coming. And as a reminder, please hold all of your questions until everyone has presented, and then I will be happy to be available to answer those questions. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Next up, we have Beth Kilmarts.
Okay, can you see my screen? Yep, okay.
Good to go, good to go.
All right. All right. Hi, I'm Beth Kilmarks. I am at Cushing Memorial Library and Archives at Texas A&M in College Station. And I will begin my talk now. There are a number of challenges facing special collections units, and the list of challenges can be seemingly endless, from backlogs, digitization, reparative cataloging, to security barriers, food and drink, and the use of volunteers, and to the teaching of primary sources, and to what to do when visitors arrive accompanied with non-service animals, or how to demonstrate the value of their collections. Some of the challenges are old, recurring issues, and some are new concerns brought about by COVID, technological advances, current events, and the ongoing need to make collections relevant, accessible, and discoverable. By facing these challenges, special collections are working to transform themselves for the future. By understanding the needs of your institution, its pedagogical mission, your students, faculty, and current trends, it is possible to prioritize these challenges. And by doing so, a special collections unit can strategically plan for its growth and direction and move from the past to the present and into the future. In North America, special collections were invented in the 20th century. In most institutions, they were formerly called treasure rooms and housed rare books, maps, manuscripts, artifacts, and had limited access to a select few. As libraries grew and their collections aged, the need for a unit to house and care for these special collections also grew. And so during the 1960s, we see the first transformation of special collections, from being a room of curiosities to a separate library unit designated as a center for research. In the late 1970s and 80s, there was a second transformation as the special collections profession had evolved to discuss the challenges of preservation, the ethics of collecting practices, staffing levels, and the need to fund special collections in academic libraries. By 2000, actions had replaced words, and the third transformation of special collections began with the hidden collections movement, as academic libraries concentrated on reducing backlogs, making collections accessible and discoverable, and eliminating barriers, and investing in digital initiatives. Since 2000, academic libraries have been in the process of transforming themselves from traditional and to transactional institutions into information hubs centered around providing students with information in different formats and with services and offices related to student success, such as writing centers, one-button studios, first-year experiences, advertising, and Starbucks cafes. Transformation has now become the buzzword throughout the library profession and the topic of articles, professional meetings, and mandates, such as IFLA's Transform Libraries, Transform Societies. And in this recent publication, The Future of Libraries, the author, Scott Carlson, states that academic libraries will serve at least three functions: as a space, as a collection, and as a source of human expertise, but that they would remain the heart of their campuses. However, academic libraries would need to transform themselves through institutional innovations, renovations, consolidations, and organizations in order to remain relevant and to be more responsive to the needs of their students. Hold on one sec. There we go. As universities seek to revitalize their libraries in accordance with their core missions, to provide relevant and in-demand educational opportunities, to build cultures of diversity, equity, and inclusion on their campuses, and to strengthen their community connections, academic administrators are acknowledging the significance of their special collections and the need to actively promote and demonstrate the relevance of their unique collections to all of their stakeholders. As a result of today's current academic trends, special collections have been adapting to the new academic landscape and transforming themselves again through community engagements designed to demystify special collections, with efforts to democratize special collections through changes in audiences to include non-traditional scholars, the introduction of social justice projects into the archives, and the collecting of materials of underrepresented or marginalized groups. Instead of basic show and tell presentations and special collections, there is now a greater emphasis on teaching with primary sources in order to enhance the students' knowledge of these course materials, to improve critical thinking, to promote evidence-based reasoning, and to provide a better understanding of history. These challenges are reflected in the recent mission statements of most academic special collections. Early mission statements were all but identical to that of Georgia University system, that their mission was to identify, collect, preserve, and provide access to rare or unique materials. Today's mission statements have been expanded beyond collecting and preserving historic materials to include core values, DEI principles, providing support for teaching research, to collect materials reflective of their communities, and the need for community engagement at all levels. So what specific actions have special collections department or units taken to transform themselves in this most transitional phase? Some institutions have prioritized these challenges and have responded by redesigning their libraries around special collections, restructuring their special collections under one divisional heading, and consolidating services to provide better access to collections for scholars and non-scholars alike. However, special collections, their future is dependent on remaining committed to their pedagogical missions by prioritizing these challenges to make their collections accessible and discoverable. They need to access, diversify, and expand their collections to make them relevant to their communities, and to collaborate and engage within and across their communities through developing effective outreach, inreach, and primary source instructional programming. With pedagogy as its core value, how will these special collections transform themselves? Well, one way is to engage in non-traditional forms of instruction engagement, as seen as in this example of a crowdsourced transcription project. During the COVID closure, I was looking for ways to connect with students and the community. And at the same time, our development officer was asking us to digitize this ledger of the first oil company established in Texas in order to help with a donor in their donation. The ledger was scanned, the images were posted on this website, and the transcription of the pages began almost immediately, not just by students, but by Aggie alumni and by people around the country interested in history. It was a win-win situation for us. Pages in cursive handwriting were just transcribed. The Houston Oil Company collection was made accessible and discoverable. The donor was appeased, and history was made available via this type of public humanities project. Another way is for special collections to take the lead on social justice initiatives and projects. For one project, they can provide disclaimers on their collection websites concerning legacy collections stewarded by the institutions. Such acknowledgments are simple, and they inform the researchers that due to the age of the collections, researchers may encounter language that is offensive. And while the language in historic documents cannot be altered, we are working to update the language in our finding aids. In addition, special collections can engage in reparative cataloging to identify outdated or offensive language in their catalog and to make sure their entries are accurate, inclusive, and community-centered. For another project, they can survey legacy collections and look for keywords, specific information, and individuals that people would recognize. This can be a collaborative project involving students, faculty, and administrators to help archivists identify gaps in collections that need to be addressed. Such projects can lead to new donations of archival resources that are more inclusive and reflective of present-day students. And overall, these social justice projects serve to make the collections more relevant to today's students and can aid in institutional history projects of a campus as they are rich sources of information for better understanding current issues. Special collections need to cultivate connections with the communities we serve and collect materials that reflect the full range of the communities within our collecting scope. Special collections also can transform themselves by supporting student projects that are beyond the traditional research paper. It is essential for the future of special collections to engage and collaborate with students on active learning projects such as student-curated exhibitions, as these projects have impact and students gain transferable skills to researching and prepping exhibits. In Cushing, we have a very active student exhibit pop-up program in which, aside from it being fun and the students get to play with, I shouldn't say play with, get to use and study some very interesting and famous materials, they also gain experience and advance in their primary source literacy as they must read, understand, summarize, interpret, analyze, and evaluate the materials they are working with, the building blocks of critical thinking in their college education. And additionally, special collections need to collaborate with colleagues across campus to support teaching initiatives. By doing so, it is an opportunity to expand their boundaries and to take special collections out of special collections, to demonstrate how the special collections is in alignment with the university's goals, and that such collaborations promote faculty and research and connect with the teaching curriculum. In the past 20 years or so, as libraries have become more indistinguishable from each other's, librarians, administrators, and even library users have realized that it's the cultural heritage materials in the special collections unit that will set each library apart. To support their missions, their institutions, special collections are increasingly being challenged as their librarians must need expert knowledge about the collections they curate, but also increasingly to be experts in social media, outreach, and digital skills. Particularly the ability to unlock data in the collections from data mining and digital scholarship techniques. They must also be aware of artificial intelligence and how it can help us transcribe digitized text and create better metadata. And these special collections librarians must understand the best platforms where we can create and share content and make accessible to anyone their collections to anyone online. As keepers of cultural heritage, they are increasingly being challenged, and rightly so, about the history of their collections, associations with slavery, dubious provenance, or even contested histories, as seen with the uncomfortable documentary history of comfort limit. There can be differences of opinion about ownership and demands for reparation. People who work with these collections need a strong ethical framework in which to build collections, or when necessary, refuse or return them, as well as develop new kinds of collections that reflect subjects of interest today, climate, for instance, and better represent voices which have been silent or hidden in the past. And in closing, special collections must maintain their pedagogical core values while working to address these challenges. And by doing so, they will be prepared for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Next up, we have Mark McKnight.
There seems to be a misunderstanding. I do not have a lightning round presentation.
I'm sorry, who's doing Are You a Fraud?
That's me. It's Victor.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know why I wrote that I have the wrong information. I do apologize.
That's all right.
Victor, please take it away.
Okay, let me get my screen. Sorry, none of these are the right one. Okay, can you all see my screen? I can't see. Okay, so hi, my name is Victor Contreras. I work at Access Services here at TAMU Kingsville. I've just started here. This is my second semester. I started at the beginning of the spring semester of this year. My presentation is called Are You a Fraud? Identifying and Addressing Imposter Syndrome in TAMU System Librarians. And I really wanted to base this off my initial experience getting used to the workplace culture and expectations here at the James C. Jernigan Library, and hopefully give y'all any tips if you're in a similar position. Now, before we get in, what is something that Emma Watson, David Tennant, Michelle Obama, Daniel Kwan, Maya Angelou, and Sonia Sotomayor all have in common? Something that all of these very famous, very accomplished individuals have in common is that they all felt like frauds at one point or another amongst their peers. For Maya Angelou, she once said, "I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody, and they're going to find me out." Michelle Obama recently said, "It doesn't go away, that feeling that you shouldn't take me that seriously." What do I know? I share that with you because we all have doubts in our abilities, about our power.
Victor,
Yes?
I'm sorry, you're not advancing your slides, just so you know, you're still on the first slide.
I don't know how to fix that.
Oh no.
Let me stop sharing for a bit. I'm gonna try to do the whole screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so moving on. One label that we might apply to this feeling of anxiety and amongst your peers is imposter syndrome. This was first proposed by Langford and Clance in 1978. Symptoms in librarians like us might include a lack of confidence in one's academic training and professional experience with library services and technologies, especially when starting a new job. Feeling inadequate compared to your colleagues, as well as students and campus faculty, and anxiety about being discovered and punished for being a fake. So I wanted to find some stats on this syndrome that are specifically related to librarians. In a 2019 study of Medical Library Association members, 1 out of 7 of these participating members reported feelings of imposter syndrome. Now, more related to us, in a 2014 study, 1 out of 8 college-educated college and university librarians suffered greatly with imposter syndrome. From this study, we have a few anecdotes. One librarian reported, "I'm in a new position, having to learn a lot of new things with little guidance. I definitely feel inadequate on a regular basis. I'm hoping this situation will improve as time passes. Another said, sometimes it seems as though our field is changing so fast that it is difficult to feel truly competent in everything needed to do the job well. Not to mention that many of us wear so many hats that we're bound to feel like one of those hats doesn't fit as well as the others. Personally, that last quote really spoke to me, given that before I joined TAMU K, I had spent a little under 2 years as a public library assistant with Corpus Christi Public Libraries. I was at 2 separate branches there, and adjusting from being on the front desk of a public library to the relatively calmer James C. Jernigan Library front desk has definitely been a big shift. Not only is it less active and you're dealing with a different group of patrons, but specifically my experience at the public libraries was learning how to deal with learning how to help patrons who had vastly different experiences from mine. The 2 groups that I think of were, I was personally asked to help patrons who were experiencing extreme poverty or homelessness. Usually these were older adults who had nowhere else to go. They often had physical or mental disabilities that prevented them from moving forward in life. And we also helped accommodate recently released ex-inmates who needed to accomplish job searching on our public computers. And so that was a big learning curve for them, and it was a big learning curve for me as well. I definitely feel like my experience at the public library helps me at James C. Jernigan, but at the same time, it is difficult going from having to always be in that prepared to go into that crisis management position at a public library to it's a lot calmer here, but I always feel like I always have to be active, if that makes sense. But something that we've learned from both of these studies is that participants with more professional experience reported imposter syndrome less than their peers. Overall, older participants with more experience had more confidence in asking for help and pointing out flaws in library management. One reported, I felt like I was underqualified, but it mostly stemmed because I was young. My superiors tended to passive aggressively treat me as if I wasn't very qualified. When I first started my career, another said, when I first started my career and at my second job at the beginning, it took a while to gain confidence in my abilities. Now, over 10 years in, if I don't think I can handle something or learn how to take it on, I'm more than happy to admit that from the start. That is probably the best way you can combat imposter syndrome. It's by talking about it with your colleagues and peers. A lot of them probably feel the same way, and it's a good way to get to know the people you're going to be working with on a long-term basis. It's definitely helped me here at TAMU K get to know my colleagues and managers a lot more. Some other advice that I found in the literature on this topic was to seek further education or join a professional organization in your given library niche. When I first started my master's at the University of North Texas, I was encouraged to join as a student for the ALA and the Texas State Library Association, and that really helped broaden my my view of what was possible with an MLS degree. Supervisors also need to be proactive with combating this issue and not adding to it as well. The most important thing is don't let it define you though. Imposter syndrome can be a self-fulfilling prophecy if you're constantly reminding yourself, I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, I don't fit in. It's also important to note that there is no professional consensus on imposter syndrome. Out of all the literature I found on this topic, there wasn't one same set of definitions or symptoms. It's also not a scientific or medical syndrome that you need to get treatment on. If we have to replace it with different terms and theories in the future, that's okay. The most important thing is if a label can help you grow, labels are there to help you grow, not to keep you stuck in your present state. Something also to consider is that the students that you help on a daily basis are also feeling anxious about being in our library spaces. Something that I found is a related concept called library anxiety, where patrons feel inadequate, uncomfortable, or intrusive in library spaces, and so they avoid our libraries and library staff. But how can we expect patrons to feel comfortable when we also feel inadequate or intrusive, or like we don't belong in our own spaces? We have to be able to combat imposter syndrome within ourselves so that we can advocate for our TAMU systems, students, faculty, staff, and community users. And that's it. These are my references, and I'm gonna stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Victor. Last up, we have Jennifer Anderson and Marisol Moreno.
Let me share my screen. Okay.
All right. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We hope that your conference has been going well and that you've been inspired and encouraged by what you've seen so far. We are going to very quickly talk about the Library Support Squad, which is the mentorship program that's grown up out of the System Virtual Library Conference. We will start with introductions. My name is Jennifer, and I'm the Community Engagement Librarian at the Mary and Jeff Bell Library here at TAMU CC. I've been involved with the mentorship program since early 2021.
And my name is Marisol Moreno. My pronouns are she, ella, and I'm the program coordinator for diversity at the Sterling C. Evans Library at Texas A&M University Libraries in College Station. And I joined the mentoring program in 2022. And it's not just the two of us. There's a whole committee behind the program with folks from across the system. We plan with Kimberly Michelle Gay from Prairie View, Kim Hurd, formerly at Tarleton, Trisha Hernandez here at TAMU, Trisha Hernandez at TAMU Corpus Christi, Samantha Lawrence at the Jernigan Library in Kingsville, and Beth Vizini at West Texas.
So it all started with a dine and dish social hour for the 2021 Virtual Library Conference. Trisha and Kim and I were planning sessions for the upcoming conference and thought that a conversation about support mechanisms and finding your people was a really good place to start. There were lots of campus conversations happening about sponsorships and affinity groups at the time, and we were inspired to find ways to encourage connections.
So after 2020, we were looking at, as Jennifer said, looking at ways to reconnect. At the time, virtual was the way to go. We wanted to offer an opportunity to connect new and newish library folks with the experience and math skills of our colleagues and peers, whether it was learning more about interlibrary loan or getting ahead professionally, brushing up on leadership skills, or the best way to handle a sticky situation. We wanted to help make those connections and collaborate across communities. So at the 2021 VLC conference, we announced the steering committee at the time announced an opportunity to join the steering committee. So this was an amazing group of folks who got the program off the ground, and the planning committee keeps it going. So we wanted to make sure we were going about this the right way. So as good librarians, we did our research. We pulled together our past experiences with other mentoring opportunities and looked for examples of other programs online and explored best practices and lessons learned.
Great ideas are fun, especially when the energy is high and folks seem excited about getting engaged, but getting excited about a program and having the time and resources to commit are two different things. We weren't really sure if anybody would sign up. So that was one of our first challenges. When the applications started coming in, we had a pretty good pool of mentors to start with. And we opened this call first to make sure that we had mentors to offer for our mentees. Our application questions included information about what skills and experiences our mentors had and what insight and knowledge our mentees might be looking for. And it was more challenging than we expected to match the pairs. Offering the best experience with the interests of our mentees. We had to do some creative arranging to make the best pairing that we could, and it didn't work for everyone. We're learning as we go. Our next challenge, of course, is to figure out how to keep it going. We'll open the call for opportunities to get on the ground floor and help with planning today. And we'll try and keep a rotation of folks on the committee so that we can lead the way with a mix of experienced committee members and new committee members joining the fun. We're going to keep listening and adapting as we learn.
So the program, for the most part, is unmediated. It's the role of the mentors to connect with their mentees for 1 hour at the least every month. So the planning committee provides discussion prompts, but the groups can speak on a broad range of topics that would be helpful to develop their professional skills. And if we've learned from one of the sessions yesterday, professional and personal development there's a synergy between those two. So all this said, the planning committee did want to meet with mentors and mentees to capture their feedback about the program thus far. So we performed a check-in in January. What was also great about these check-ins is that it provided an opportunity for mentees and mentors to meet members of their respective groups. If you'll recall from the earlier slide, we kept in mind how can we create these opportunities to forge connections across the system. So in our check-ins, we posed 5 questions to each group. The questions range from have you experienced or learned anything new and or exciting, maybe an epic aha moment you want to share with the group, or have the monthly prompts been helpful? So on the screen, we've shared a few responses that we captured. And we wanted to be sure to capture these anonymously, just to allow for open conversation during those check-ins. So one reads, getting to know my mentee, who is a delight and so accomplished already at a relatively early stage of her career. We compared notes and shared projects that we were both piloting. I enjoyed our discussions and taking time, pause and chat about librarianship. So now that our first year is coming to an end, we are preparing for the next cycle, and Jennifer will go into a bit more on that.
So we're wrapping up our first year in July, and we'll send out an exit survey to all of our participants to get more feedback on the program. We'll review the midpoint survey and the exit survey data and see what we can learn about what changes we might want to implement for our next year. We're opening the call for new folks to join the planning team here at the conference. If you have experience with a mentorship program or leading a mentoring program, or simply want to find a way to get involved, we'd love to talk to you. Marisol will drop the link for our form in the chat, so that's available there. We'll also open the applications for this next year's mentor and mentees in July. And we've already had a few questions about whether or not folks can rejoin and sign up for a second year. Repeat participants are most welcome, but we will prioritize finding matches for our new members to help create new networks and connections. You might not be in the market for a mentor or being a mentor yourself, but chances are there are some folks at your library that will benefit from these connections across the system. So feel free to pass this along to your teams back at your libraries. The program is open to all faculty and staff at any stage in their career. We're also very happy to talk about our experiences. If you're interested in participating in the program, helping us plan, or starting your own mentorship opportunity at your library, we're willing to share what we've learned.
So that concludes our presentation. We'll open up, I guess, at this point for questions. If Jillian thinks, I do see a comment in the chat that the form says it's no longer accepting applications. So we will fix that.
We will fix that.
Thank you for letting us know. We'll also drop a link to the website in the chat. There is also you can also access the website through the VLC website. So feel free to reach out with questions and share the link with email, and email with colleagues back in your libraries.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our speakers today. Very wonderful talks. And you guys really nailed it on the time. Very good. But we are now open for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. use the chat. And if it's directed to somebody, let us know who it's for. Not really a question, but I really liked Bruce, the title, Your Bridge to College Knowledge. I just think that's really cute. We have a question in the chat. How many mentor-mentee matches were there this past year?
We rounded up with 11 pairs.
Very cool. For the call for mentor-mentees, you said it's going to go out in July. Are you just going to share that through like email system-wide, or is that something that we need to look at the website for?
We will share system-wide. We will post on social media. Our plan is also to utilize our conference planning representatives from each campus to help them share back out to our individual libraries. So in as many ways as possible, we will share our open applications.
Perfect. Thank you.
I did have a question for Bruce regarding what type of stuff did the students seem to gravitate towards at your campus shop? Was it different than the stuff that you guys were giving out for free?
Well, we gave them primarily, we gave them bags, we gave them highlighters. Primarily what we gave them was school supplies. Our partners gave them folders and stuff like that. We tried to give them useful stuff. And so what they gravitated towards was like shirts and hats and keychains and that sort of stuff. Stuff that we don't really have currently as swag. So, I mean, it's something we may look at in the future. Yeah, thank you for asking.
Beth, you have your hand raised.
I was gonna tell Bruce, one of the best things we've ever given away here in Cushing were bandanas. They loved them, even though we were told by marketing they were really expensive, almost as expensive as t-shirts. People rave about them and still talk about them and will come in and ask about the bandanas. And to me, they can get, the tchotchke stuff, wherever. And I just think if we spend the money on that one thing and give it to them, that's my talk to marketing. We just want one thing, and it's the bandana. And what we did is we put our different collections on the bandana. Even though it had a sci-fi theme, we had A&M, but we had, rocket ships and other images of the collections that we have in the library. So that might be something to think about.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Question in the chat for Bruce: is your program more geared towards rural high schools, or would y'all open it up to Title I schools?
Currently, in its current state, it's really intended towards rural schools because we kind of wanted to start small. We do have other relationships with, for example, the Amarillo High School IB comes and does some programming, but it's definitely one of those, if anyone's interested, we will figure something out with them. That's sort of our policy. But at least currently, in terms of directed marketing, we're looking at some of the rural stuff. But thank you for asking, and thank you for the bandana option there, Beth. I think I have one of those, but it's buried somewhere deep. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question for Victor, and maybe for everybody. I feel like imposter syndrome is universal and anybody anywhere can feel imposter syndrome. But do you think that it was once there was a name to put to it, I don't know, I just feel like there was a while where until that term was floated around, I don't know even when I learned of it, probably 2019 or so. I was like, yes, that's what this is. Do you think that helps? I mean, just putting a name to it, like you said, a label helps you grow through something. But I don't know, what did we all do before we knew what imposter syndrome was?
Well, I know that in a lot of the celebrity testimonials that I looked over, the ones who specifically used imposter syndrome tended to be the younger celebrities. So it wasn't something that a more experienced older folk were using, which I think goes into the question of you can have a label, but you need usage to propagate that. And that was something else that I kept coming across as I was reviewing the literature, was that there's actually a lot of people now who reject the label entirely because they're like, I'm not an imposter, it's completely made up. And you know what, if that works for you, that's fine. And I know that a lot of people have problems with the semantics of it, but like you were saying, it's kind of just something that you have to give power to yourself. Like if it helps you, then that's great. But if it doesn't, we're always, as librarians, we're always willing to change, and we're always willing to evolve and to work towards something that'll include everyone in our services.
Great, thank you. I did put the session survey form in the chat. Please take our session surveys and help us improve the conferences and the sessions. Are there any more questions for our speakers? Right. Well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you all again for joining the lightning round sessions. I hope you all enjoyed and learned something. I know I did. I hope we're headed into the lunch break, so I hope everyone has a wonderful lunch, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock for the next few sessions. Thank you, everybody.